Today's episode is with Alma Paul.
Learning a lot of new things as quickly as possible, getting up to speed. Like old school hackers, they did that by breaking things, and that's how they learned. A lot of them didn't have formal education. Amazing individuals that we all look up to. So I think I do think there is value to formal education, that it teaches you how to think, it teaches you how to learn. Knowledge itself has been democratized for a long time.
Codex, you can generate code, but if you do not understand what is being generated, if you need to fix something, how do you do that, right? Like
cataloging and making sure we have a really good asset directory. We know what are the things that we own. We know what our footprint is, and we are able to I think we chart out the different, specifically for enterprise security, what are the different domains that we care about. Identity, say endpoint security, all of those different things, those different pieces of the puzzle that make up enterprise security, one management, different components, right? So when we're talking about metrics, I have a love-hate with metrics, right? I think it's a pain to produce, but I think
everyone has sorry, but yeah, I think everyone has that love-hate relationship with metrics, because
any kind of program, it needs to be flexible enough. If we need to pivot, we should be able to do that easily without being penalized on it, right? If we're able to make it as frictionless as possible, that is a win for both security and for the business. At the end of the day, we are here to help the business, right? We're not.
Hi everyone, this is Purushottam, and thanks for tuning into ScaleToZero podcast. Today's episode is with Alma Paul. She's a senior corporate security engineer at FAIR, and she's a specialist with strong educational background, industry experience, and in-depth knowledge of security tools, techniques, and practices. Alma, thank you so much for joining with me today in the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Sounds good. So let's, before we start, maybe do you want to talk about what does a day in your life look like?
It obviously depends on the day, but recently I've started a new job, so it has been learning a lot of new things as quickly as possible, getting up to speed, understanding the environment, understanding the business, meeting with different teams, stakeholders, getting to know the tools that we use in the environment. And then while I'm doing all of that, I do understand that I wouldn't have this luxury of time later on. So I'm also kind of making sure that I'm taking mental notes and actually writing down any risks and any gaps that I find, so that we can, we have a registry to work off of when we want to kind of chart out a bigger plan.
Okay, sounds good. So today we'll cover on enterprise security and vulnerability management. So I hope we can touch on some of the risk registers, some of the learnings that you have had recently, and how that plays out with your work. Yes. But before we get into the security questions, one of the things that I wanted to start with is you started your career with a very strong academic foundation, right? With masters in information assurance, versus some folks who may start with by getting their hands dirty, maybe hands-on experience. There is no right or wrong path, right? Both have their pros and cons. How has this the academic foundation help you approach the enterprise security problems compared to maybe someone who has come from the other way around? How do you see that?
Excellent question. So as you know, a lot of people in the industry, a lot of hackers, right? Old school hackers, they did that by breaking things, and that's how they learned. A lot of them didn't have formal education. Amazing individuals that we all look up to. So I think a lot of very impactful colleagues that I've had, a lot of impactful people in security field, necessarily don't come from that academic background, and are able to be very successful. Me personally, I think what having a formal education, what it helped me with was gain a lot of breadth of understanding. So it wasn't just one area that I specialized in. I I took a class on risk and compliance and secure coding, and then actually like getting my hands dirty and breaking things and doing offensive security. So like a lot of different areas of security I was able to touch. Also, what education really helped me with was getting my foot in the door. It was a little easier for me to get started in the field because I had a lot of support from the university to get those internships and get those co-ops and convert that into a full-time job. I will say this, that a lot of things in security I learned through a lot of pain and experience and breaking things. So I don't think there is one right way to approach it. Both are fine. You have to continuously keep learning and improving to do better in this field regardless. I will say this, that I did kind of have to make sure that over time I gained more in-depth experience in those verticals and those domains that I lacked experience in. So it fills up, but I think there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah. No, that's a very good way to put this. Now, a follow-up question to that is, like, often academics helps you with gaining knowledge, right? Or from your instructors or from your teachers. Now, in the AI age, knowledge is available, right? You go to ChatGPT, Claude, and you ask questions, you find answers. What's your thought of on like the degree-led education for security and its relevance, maybe let's say 5 year down the line?
I've been thinking about it quite a bit. I have a toddler, and I'm like, by the time he is college going age, is that concept still going to exist, right? So I don't necessarily have like an answer of like if that will be valid in like 15 years or whatever. I do think there is value to formal education, that it teaches you how to think, it teaches you how to learn. Knowledge itself has been democratized for a long time, right? Like even pre-AI, we have had YouTube, we've had podcasts, we've had free resources online. MIT puts out coursework. So there is a lot of free resource available at all time, and just because you're kind of like you've gotten your undergrad or your master's doesn't mean that is the end of the education either. You're continuously learning all the time. I do think that it's like formal education gives you a little bit of structure. I don't think that is the only way to gain knowledge. I understand that there's another aspect to it, which is also like financial, right? Like it is expensive to get an education, a formal education, especially like if you're talking like 2-3 degrees. So I am very grateful that we have this democratization of knowledge. I think what we need to be mindful of is just because we have AI doesn't mean that it's going to like replace traditional knowledge, like traditional like way of learning. We still need to get really in depth and really good at things, and that's kind of like where we have to be very mindful of is we have this vast information available to us, but we have to like still put in the effort to make sure that we are painfully getting to the depth of things and understanding things thoroughly. That's my 2 cents.
No, I mean, yeah, that's a debate which is going on in the industry now, for academics and non-academics. That hey, how what would be the relevance and things like that. I think one thing that you pointed out around like the learning the depth of it, right? Like today, if you use let's say Claude or Codex, you can generate code, but if you do not understand what is being generated, if you need to fix something,
Yes.
how do you do that, right? Like even though you cannot just say that hey the agent has written it and I have no idea, like
Yeah.
you own it, right? So that means the you have to have those foundational knowledge or the basics understood really well, and that's where academics helps you a lot. So yeah, even I am conflicted as well, not conflicted, but even I am not sure where how kids of this generation or the next generation, how will they look at academics compared to
Yeah.
what AI is providing. I guess future will find out
Time
in the
will tell.
future. Yeah, yeah. So the next thing that I wanted to touch on is around the security, like enterprise security. One of the things is enterprises are complex, right? Like they have so many tools, so many processes, programs, everything is going on. So for a security leader who is trying to, let's say, build or restructure maybe an enterprise security program, uh, let's say if you are doing that, what are the, let's say, first three things that you would look at and you would fix them first before you maybe overhaul everything or bring a major program?
So I think from a specifically like a leadership standpoint, right? The first thing that we need is visibility. We need to understand, like, we cannot protect something that we just like don't know about, right? So and this is like what we've done at different companies that I've worked with as well, was cataloging and making sure we have a really good asset directory. We know like what are the things that we own, we know what our footprint is, and we are able to like kind of like put them all like centrally in one location. So we understand, then we can kind of like do the risk analysis and build that risk registry of like, what are we trying to protect, what are our gaps, and what is our north star. What does, if we are able to deploy everything correctly, if we are able to build a very successful program, what does that end product look like, what does that end state look like? So having that north star along with like these like fundamentals correct, I think it's very important. The next thing is, and I know like this kind of like changes and evolves over time, but as much as possible, having a way to have a consistent risk model, right? So regardless of who on your team is doing that risk analysis, they're able to kind of like come up with the exact same criticality level. So making sure that you're giving guidance such that your risks are mapped to the workplace that you're working on, because everyone has like different risk level. Like it's not one size fits all. So giving that guidance on consistent or on having a consistent risk model is very important. And lastly, I think, are you leveraging the tools that you have today? We get very excited and we kind of like want to like do new things, but if you're not leveraging what you have today in the environment, mentally you're kind of like, yes, I have some coverage, but do you actually have coverage? Or is someone actually actively, it doesn't have to be someone, it can be AI, it can be like some automation, but are you looking at the alerts that the tools are spitting out? Are you able to, are you leveraging all of the capabilities it has, and then kind of like proceed to the next thing.
I like how you structure them, right? Like first thing is what
Yeah.
the what aspect
Yeah.
is very important. If you don't know what you are protecting, how will you protect them, right? Uh, the North Star aspect. I have a follow up question for a security organization. What would you say would is your North Star?
So I think maybe like it isn't like one thing, right? And it's going to keep evolving and changing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we chart out the different, specifically for enterprise security, what are the different domains that we care about? Is it, so like identity, say endpoint security, all of those different things, those different pieces of the puzzle that like make up enterprise security, one management, like different components, right? And what is your maturity level in each of those things, right? Are you like on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you rate yourself, and where do you want to be? Do you want to have like 0, 1 in like in your environment? Is that like your end goal? Or are you like, okay, we are able to remediate most criticals and highs within like 3-4 days, whatever that, like whatever benchmark you've set for yourself? I think that's kind of like what you evaluate against for all of these different domains that you have. What is the maturity level I aspire to be in each of those domains? That's how I would kind of like go and approach it.
Makes sense. The third thing that you mentioned was around the tooling. If you are adopting it the right way, or if you fine tuned it the right way, like the for your organization or not, and that's a very big uh, challenge or challenge we see, right? That as you mentioned, like we get excited that there is AI and there is a new security tool there with it. We say that hey, we want it, we buy it, and then we go to the next thing and we do not adopt or do not fine tune and use it. So that often means even though you have the tools necessary for your job or for improving your security, you're not using it the right way. Now the question is like, how do you, like what metrics then you look at, like what KPIs do you look at to see that you are using the tools, or your health of the security program that you want to incorporate, and any misleading indicators that you should avoid?
So I would say avoid vanity. So like when we're talking about metrics, I have a love-hate with metrics, right? I think it's a pain to produce, but I
I
think
think
they
everyone
are.
has. Sorry, but yeah, I think everyone has that love-hate relationship with metrics, because they, like, sometimes they do not give you the
Yeah.
real picture, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I think everyone has like very strong opinions, right? They're a pain to produce. They have to be very accurate. They have to be updated correctly. So there's like a whole program that needs to run to like make sure that if you're relying on metrics, that they're telling a picture. We need to really steer clear from vanity metrics, and by that, like, we kind of like, oh, we have like had 100,000 ones being reported in the last like 1 year. Like, it doesn't mean anything, right? Like, it doesn't tell a story of like how well you're running your program. So metrics for your program needs to tell a story of like how well you have done over like a period of time. So last year, if we were, like if we were going to focus on endpoint security and vuln management, a year later, your metrics need to be defined in such a way that it's able to tell us how much risk have you reduced over time, how much coverage have you had over time, and I think that's what like a powerful metrics is, where it reflects the hard work that you've done, and it shows the value that you've added to the company. Metrics also do another thing, which again is very important for security teams, because we are usually kind of always understaffed. It's an
Yeah,
important so it's an important tool to kind of like see if that is, do we need more automation, or do we need more engineers? Why is it that if you're missing, if you're not able to hit a certain metrics, why is it? And doing analysis on that and remediating that, so that we're able to like make more of an impact over over the next year, maybe. I think that is another story it tells. It needs to be with anything, any kind of program, it needs to be flexible enough. If we need to pivot, we should be able to do that easily without being penalized on it, right? Of course, if you're committing to something, that we should most likely deliver those things, but we also should be flexible enough to say that, some call fallacy, this is, we focused on this area, but it wasn't something that we should have. Let's
yeah.
pivot, let's redo. So I think metrics should tell a story. It should tell a story of growth, hopefully.
Yeah, I think the last part that you said, right, that it should tell a story, or it should at least show the progress that you have been achieving. Maybe if it's a 6 months program, throughout the 6 months, where did you
Yeah.
start, and what's your north star? Again, connect to what you said earlier, and how far are you, or how are you trending towards the north star? Maybe that gives
Yeah.
you more information, or it tells a better story than saying that, hey, we have fixed 200 vulnerabilities. What does that even mean, right?
Yeah.
And so now, uh, like, when it comes to enterprise security, security teams are understaffed, as you said. You have to work with many other teams, right, like business units and engineering, product, all of those. Now, from there is an aspect of culture which often plays a big role in here. So how do you balance the tension between, like, enabling the businesses to move fast, or enabling the engineering to move fast, and at the same time making sure that you like whatever you had outlined as your north star, you are
Yeah.
progressing towards that, like the balance between business moving fast and a strong security posture? Like, how do you do that?
I feel personally, like, obviously everybody understands security is important, right? That's why we are funded. That is why um, folks help us like achieve our goals despite it being painful. I think as security professionals, we have to understand that security, and we have to be very mindful, and it has to be like always back of mind that security comes with a cost. It could be a dollar value. It could be, like a degradation of service. It could be deprioritizing other things that another team
Mm-hmm.
would have had to do. So it has a real cost associated with it. So whenever we make a decision of having like a policy, or like introducing something new, we have to be able to defend it very thoroughly. It has to be a very thought out, very thoughtful process, and we have to kind of like have that internal monologue of, this, is it needed, can we make it better? Like, if we're able to make it as frictionless as possible, that is a win for both security and for the business. At the end of the day, we are here to like help the business, right? We're like not two different functions. We're all like working on the same team. So sometimes, of course, we have to say no there and sometimes there are regulatory reasons why we have to kind of like do things because because they're necessary. But most times, I think we can work with our with our partner teams to kind of have as frictionless as possible of an implementation as we can. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're it's a science and art is what they say, right? There's like a lot of there is a lot of making sure that in addition to being like technically strong, you also have like those very strong relationship with your partner teams that then like help you kind of like move your security agenda a little further.
Yeah, I think like you're spot on with that relationship part, right?
Yeah.
The more trust the other teams have with on security, the better outcomes you will get from a security perspective, right? Like you can
Yeah.
move along, like, or you can push some of your agenda
Yeah.
further. Totally. If I want to maybe scale it down a little bit, like enterprises are complex, we understand. How does that compare to a, let's say, a startup of, let's say, 5 people or 10 people or 20 people or 30, like compared to an enterprise? If I'm looking at it from for a smaller organization, how do you see them being different?
So I think for a smaller company, and so I joined as the first enterprise security engineer here at my current job. Having said that, I think, and I want to give them kudos here because security was embedded in their DNA, like in IT team's DNA
Yes.
from the very start, right? So it's not an afterthought that like a enterprise security person will have to like come and clean up. They've built things with security in mind. That is like one of the founding principles, and I think that is the only way that we can scale. We're security teams are usually like understaffed, underfunded. For us to be able to make a very large impact, it needs to be a cultural shift where security is everybody's business. And if everyone is doing their part, then for us as like a centralized security team, it becomes easy to kind of our job becomes easy because then we are kind of like writing those policies and standards, and we're kind of like giving that expertise and guidance to like help teams make the right decision. But I think like culturally that shift needs to happen where everybody knows that security is important and they're able. So here's the other thing too, right? Like a systems engineer understands that system extremely well, probably like better, like they understand the system that they're building better than anybody else. So they also understand like the flaws, and they also understand the ways to like best secure them as well. So their expertise is very much valued and needed. That's my 2 cents.
I'm glad that your current organization has that deep security mindset, right? Like often what happens is when you are a startup, your primary focus is just to build things and get to product market fit, right? And so you are not thinking about security. It's always an afterthought, and for no fault
Yeah.
of theirs as well, right? Like because security is not the driver of your business. You're trying to build a business. But yeah, it's amazing to hear that your organization has that had that from day one, maybe so that you have a better security posture and or foundation, which helps you build more programs and improve it even further. um,
Yeah,
yeah.
the only one last, I think like this is one of my colleagues at some point had mentioned this, that, like instead of like seeing security as a cost center, seeing it as something that will like help your business, because when we do vendor management, like we evaluate vendors and on the security controls that they have, and we're also like selling product, and so like someone else is evaluating us as well. So having good security practices kind of like helps us gain more business, gain more trust. So that change in mindset, I think like was also I thought it was like very interesting and amazing take, and I think that shift in mindset is really helpful.
Yeah, and I think it ties back to what you said earlier, right? Like it goes back to the culture that you have at an
Yeah,
organization level, how and that sort of drives the rest of the
yeah,
organization, not just security, like rest of the organization to also
yeah,
feel responsible when you're doing when you're focusing on security. You're not just thinking that, hey, security team just gave me a bunch of vulnerabilities that I need to fix, and you do not have that mindset, right? That, hey, how does
mm,
it help and things like
yeah,
that. Speaking of vulnerabilities, now nowadays we hear a lot of vulnerabilities being discovered. Every day we hear hundreds of CVs being found because of like Fable or Mythos level models becoming available. Uh, Now, how should enterprise teams prepare for a world where there are like volumes, like even today without AI, like if you do a scan, there are hundreds of
yeah.
vulnerabilities, right, or even thousands of vulnerabilities. Now bring in AI on top of that, there are even more. So how do you prepare for it?
Yeah, uh, amazing question, and I'm very passionate about wall management. I've done it for like a little bit, and I am of the opinion that even yes, of course, there's an increased volume. There's no denying that. There's models are getting those ones existed. We're just getting really really good at finding them. The models are,
Hmm.
of course, like just leapfrogging through and finding so many things that I think the Hugging Face one was like the recent one that
Yeah,
happened like
yeah.
yes. So they're doing amazing work. I will state this though that the number of finding ones haven't really been the issue. Fixing them, right? Like that has always been the challenge. You mentioned this already. Like even before AI, we've had like volumes, and we didn't know like how to like manage that. All organizations prioritize one management. Very few are able to like yeah, a lot of organizations focus on prioritize while management, but very
Yeah.
few are able to kind of like get the program correct. And the reason for that is we need to first understand that just because something is marked as CVS as high or like a critical or CVS as 10 or a critical or high doesn't mean that it translates that way. That translates that way for your organization. We need to add more context to things, right? Like, is there like an exploit available for that one? Is it remotely exploitable? Is the service that this one is on, is it like exposed to the internet? So there are like a lot of these contexts that are very important
Hmm.
that will help you prioritize what are the things that I need to take action on immediately, what are the things that can like wait a few days to a week, and what are the things that I'm okay never touching. I think AI can kind of like help us there as well, where it can add a lot of that context, triaging those ones, being on like unless you have like a huge team kind of just doing this day in and day out, it's very difficult to kind of like even triage them, prioritize them, and get it in the queue. AI can kind of like help accelerate that, kind of help identify the ones that we need to have our immediate attention on, group them together, club them together, see if there are compensating controls that we can add to kind of like lower the risk. But it's no in the post AI world, addressing ones I feel is no different than the one like what we've done previously. I
Hmm.
think we have to get the fundamentals right. We have to make sure that we are emphasizing on patching on a cadence, one or no one, get into that habit, right? And have a program around it. And once we and having a very robust and extensive vuln management program that we have buy-in from different teams that we have, that they have their time, they've carved out time to help remediate those things, and we have metrics again, we going back to the metrics to like show how much of a progress that we've made. I think all of these little moving fundamental pieces still hold true in a post AI world.
Yeah, I love how you connected to the like building trust with other teams so
Yeah,
that you can have some carved out time for vulnerabilities,
yeah,
fixing vulnerabilities. Now that the like volumes are going high, we are, let's say, leveraging AI for the context, the organizational context on top of it, so that you can reduce that volume to a manageable chunk in a way, and then
yeah.
work with other teams to get those addressed. A question that Danny has asked in the same for the same thing is like, how has vulnerability management changed with the influx of disclosed vulnerabilities or bug bounty reports? Like for organizations, they might have, right, like bug bounties or
Yeah.
the vulnerability disclosures. Now, like a famous curl project has paused their bug bounty entirely. Like, how do you think about that?
I think it's important to acknowledge like teams are overwhelmed, right? Like with the amount of like submissions that we're getting, of course, like everyone's overwhelmed. There's a lot of volume to go through, and we're figuring it out in real time, right? Like it doesn't. I think like we'll have a more definitive answer like 2 years from now. I do again. I want to reiterate like those fundamentals, right? Like that we've always had and we've always built. If there's a bug bounty, there's like a pipeline that it comes through. There's a validation process. There's a verification process. All of that. I think like they all still hold true. Volume is the problem right now, and I think again making sure that we're using AI for a lot of that automation, a lot of that enriching that context, even like drafting those PRs to like help get like teams started. I think leveraging those things is probably what we're going to like is probably the only way that we're going to like be able to scale. Adding more engineers, yes, it will help to some extent, but we have to leverage automation to a larger scale. And I think again, making sure our other principles where once exist, but also like, are we able to like segment things off? Are we able to add more compensating control so it like buys us a little bit more time? That's another part of that's important.
One of the things that you mentioned, which I want to maybe double click on it, is that when the volume is high, we can certainly leverage AI to add the
Yeah.
business context and things like that. But that also means you need resources, as in, let's say, tokens or AI capability or humans, right? For organizations who are already short staffed in security,
Yeah.
uh, like let's say the Curl project, right? They were getting bombarded with so many reports, and they were like, we can't humanly, it's not possible to do it. So they said we
Yeah.
are just pausing it entirely. So for organizations maybe where they do not have enough resources, this will impact them a lot, right?
Yeah.
So that's where like there is an argument coming up where vulnerable management is a losing game. We cannot do that. It's not manageable. We should shift to detection and response. What's your thought on that approach?
I don't think it's one or the other, right? We've always emphasized it layered security. I think of more they're kind of like they go hand in hand. So we need to have good, very robust, very strong one management program to address things before it becomes a problem. But some things are going to become a problem. We are going to miss some things, and that's where like detection and response is going to be like absolutely important, extremely important. So I think it's kind of it's always going to be layered security. Why we cannot, even if we're able to, we're never going to completely eliminate risk, right? Like completely eliminate we prevent no preventative control is like 100%. There's always going to be something that slips through, and that's how even pre-AI, that's how we build things, is making sure we have these layers. So like if like one gets like something gets missed, there's like another layer to kind of like catch it and hopefully like remediate. So I think both are important, both are necessary. I don't think I also like think if you take away resource from all management and put it to detection, you're going to now have the same problem where you're going to have to like have a humongous detection response team. So you're going to have to like deal with it at some point. I would rather deal it upstream and kind of like keep building these layers to hopefully like catch as much as possible.
Makes sense. Another, like you mentioned about, let's say, vulnerabilities volume. One way to manage is maybe add the business context using AI tools to reduce the volume in a way, or focus on the prioritized ones, or sorry, focus on the ones which would have potential impact for your organization. Other than that, like any other effective ways to prioritize between the like with the all the noise, what other attributes let's say you look at when you are trying to prioritize the vulnerability?
As I said, like business context, what is important for your business? What is the worst day security wise that looks like for your business, right? Identifying your important, very high risk and very valuable assets.
Mm-hmm.
That's like important to know. And then kind of like mapping those ones and translating that risk score for your environment is important. So as I already mentioned, like I think looking at different parameters of, is this something that there's like an exploit available for? Yes, it like if it is exploited, this will be super bad. But like do we even have like a working POC for this? Is this one on a service that is exposed to the internet? Then I will like probably call an incident and like patch it right now. But if it's something that is like segmented off and like it buys me a little bit more time. So business context and mapping what that one means into your environment, that I think it's always been important. And I think like even specifically right now when we're going to like deal with so much volume, it's going to be super important and critical that we prioritize the things that make the most impact for us. It is very easy to kind of get be like, okay, like it's too much to triage, and we'll just like kind of like just say anything that critical, we'll just like call that like as high priority, and that is, and I don't think that's a wrong way of doing things. I just think that it, because of like things and trends that we're seeing in the industry, it might become very overwhelming for teams patching that, because now every other day you're going to have like a very critical one that like just needs all hands on deck. So this is where like security teams have to be like very mindful of like what we are sending along. And if you're saying something is critical, then other teams will be like, okay, like they've done their diligence, this is like absolutely something that needs attention.
Versus if you say everything is critical, that means nothing is critical, right?
Nothing
then everything is
critical,
reprioritized in a way.
Exactly.
So I think what I gathered from you is like business context, like things like whether the asset which has a vulnerability, is it publicly accessible. If it is not, maybe it is of a lower priority versus some other asset which is, whether the vulnerability is exploitable or not, and if there is a exploit available somewhere, whether there is a patch available or not, things like that, right? Like imagine if there is a vulnerability which has an exploit, but it is not being exploited right now, or there is no patch available. Even though you prioritize it, there is not much that you can do, right? So some of those factors definitely help you with prioritization. Makes sense. One of the things, like since we are in the AI age, AI is being thrown at everything, right? Hey, you can use that for prioritization. You can use it for fixing, and both attackers look at it to generate maybe exploits and attack, and defenders look at it to see how we can be one step ahead of the attackers. What's your experience been so far using AI for like security?
I haven't played around much with AI for defense side, attack side of things. From a defense standpoint, I think, so for me personally, AI has been like really helpful in automating away a lot of mundane things. So like, for example, like risk reviews, right? Like there are very set parameters based on which we kind of like do our analysis. And if we're able to like, it's a repeatable process, and it's something that you can add context to, and it's something that AI can like do very well. I've also like used it very heavily for brainstorming, if there's like threat modeling, things like that, to kind of like make sure there's like completeness, and I am able to repeatedly like give similarish or like I'm consistent consistent advice, and that's kind of like what that's something that I like help use AI to like help me ground. There is significant productivity gains from a security team standpoint. As I mentioned, I recently started a job, and being able to have ramped up this quickly would not have been possible if it wasn't for AI, right? So there is a lot of productivity gains. I kind of like keep telling my like this example of like AI is like a very, very smart toddler. So it is like it still needs to be grounded correctly. It needs to be challenged. You still are the one in the driver's seat, at least right now, right? Like you're still the one driving it. So help it to like augment your program. Don't use it to like replace engineers. I don't think we're yet there yet. I think we have to understand the limitations. We're kind of like we're in a very unique position where we're finding all of this in real time, right? Where what are the limitations? What to your point, like if we're there are even like cost-based limitations that maybe at some point it might not be as effective to kind of just like throw tokens at a problem. So I think we're still figuring it out real time. The productivity gains and the gains from AI, they're undeniable. Huge proponent of it. I am a big fan. However, I'm also like very cautiously optimistic, where I understand that there are limitations that we're still like figuring out.
Makes sense. One of the things that you had mentioned earlier, right, about let's say you have tools, but you are not adopting it, you are
Yeah.
not fine tuning it, using it. One of the questions that Eric has asked, and I'm connecting the AI and security tooling, he's trying to ask, like he's asking, should people consider to use AI security solutions or run away from AI security solutions? Now that we are still in the driver's seat, right? We are just maybe guiding maybe a smart toddler. Should we do that ourselves, or we go towards a security solution?
I would say walk very carefully and slowly. I'm kidding. I think the fun reviewing or adopting an AI tool would be similar to like reviewing anything else in the market, right? Is it solving a problem that you have, like your organization has? How well is it solving it, and is it delivering on the things that it's saying it's delivering? So just because something has AI in its name doesn't mean that it's like good, right? The value of the product is it actually solving like something, a gap that exists in the market? And if it is, then absolutely, why not, right? There's a lot of gains, especially specifically in like the detection response team. One of the things that I'm really excited about is DLP, for example. It used to be like with regexes, it used to be like very black and white, right? Either it matches or it doesn't match. But now with AI, there's like context that it can look at, and making it context aware maybe makes like this huge problem that we had with DLP a lot easier to solve. We'll find out. Time will tell us. But there are areas that I have a feeling that AI is going to be extremely beneficial in. Some overpromised, but some well deserved.
So another question from Eric on AI and security is, how do you think people are getting AI wrong in security today?
I think thinking that it's going to replace humans, replace like security engineers. I don't think that will happen like immediately. I don't know. I can't predict the future, but I think we still use it for like productivity gains. Use it to kind of offload the problems that you would not want to like spend time solving, but and then conserve that time and spend it on. There's no lack of problems, right? Like we're always kind of wanting for like there's always new things to solve. But if we're able to like offload the more mundane, more repeatable things to AI, then we free up a little bit more time to focus on the things that actually matter. So yeah, I think using it wisely makes a lot of difference.
So one last question on this front is, like if you think about it, I'm trying to compare it with the autonomous driving, right? That is one of the use cases which took a
Yeah,
lot of time, and it took a lot of it took a lot of time for us to get
yeah,
confident, and
yeah.
now we can sit in Waymo a little comfortably, right? Do you, like, this is more of a prediction that maybe I'm asking from you? Do you think it will take 10 years for us to for us where AI will be in the driver's seat, or it's maybe a couple of years from now?
The way that things have progressed, it's been very, very incredible to see. I think if we keep out at this trajectory, I think we're gonna, I think we're gonna like see a lot of improvements. But my point being, even if like all development from like AI on an AI standpoint like stopped even today, the amount of gains and amount of things that we're able to do even right now, right? That's incredible. We haven't utilized the potential of it. A lot of times the bottleneck isn't even like the technology itself. It's like people and processes and
Yeah.
retrofitting AI to like fit to your organization. And I think solving that is what is going to be like the challenge, and that is going to like need humans, and that's going to need time to figure out. I do think like the technology is going to like explode and be amazing, but if we are not able to like solve for the other parts of things to be able to adopt it correctly, I think that we're not going to be able to leverage it to the full capability.
Awesome. With that, like, there is hope for humans to continue for some more time, I guess.
Hopefully.
With that, we come to the end of the podcast. But I want to ask one last question before we end. Like, do you have any learning recommendation for our
Yeah.
audience? Like, it can be a blog or a book or a podcast, anything.
Yeah. So I think for me, most of my information, most of my learning comes from like peers. Like, of course, like ScaleToZero is like absolutely amazing. Definitely, like people should check that out and have more podcasts. But also, like, for me, like a lot of information sharing and a lot of learning happens through networking, and my be it my professional network on LinkedIn, or be it like in-person meetups that I go to, or events that I go to, or like even my colleagues. So I think making sure you're tuned in to what is happening in the industry is extremely important. Pick whichever is the most comfortable path for you. I also, like, because we've been talking about AI so much, one of the things that I've set up is every day, like, it kind of like I've asked Claude to kind of like go and give me like a debrief of everything happening in the industry that is specific to like enterprise security that I might be interested in, along with like what are the things that I need to work on, just things like that, right? So it's gotten really easy. It just I think like making an effort and being in tune with what is happening around you is very important in security. We don't have, unfortunately, the luxury of kind of turning off or like going offline. A lot of things change so quickly at such an interesting pace that we have to kind of like keep up, and a lot of things that become like obsolete very quickly, and so does our knowledge, and so do we if we don't keep up. So keep learning.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you have a well-defined, it's not an RSS feed, I understand, like a feed of yours which
Yeah.
Claude gives you every morning so that you know what digest, like
With
a
my coffee,
digest.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, this is what is going on in the industry. But yeah.
Coffee time with Claude. So thank you so much, Alma, for the insightful conversation. Here are a few points which stood out for me. The first one is, now more than ever, basics matter the most. Like knowing what are you trying to secure, like your landscape, your resources, your assets, or where do you want to get to, like what's your north star. Those play an important role, especially in the AI age. The second thing is, embedding security early into your organization culture helps avoid any cleanups that you might have to do at a later point, and it also helps you like build and implement more security programs. The last one is, for vulnerability management, always prioritize based on business context, like whether the vulnerability is impacting public facing resources, or has an exploit and is exploitable, or what is the priority of applications and things like that, versus trying to fix all the vulnerabilities, which is a never ending process in itself. Yeah, thank you so much, Alma, for joining and for sharing your knowledge and insights. It was a blast.
Thank you so much, Purushottam. It was really cool being on the podcast, and I'm really looking forward to all the cool things that you do.